Welcome. May your day and the week ahead be deeply blessed by the divine. We are so glad you were here with us for this custom-tailored deep dive today.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So I want you to imagine for a second that you are, applying for the most important high-stakes leadership role of your entire life.
Right, big stakes.
Exactly. You sit down to write your resume,
Yeah.
but instead of, listing your advanced degrees or your financial successes,
Your flawless track record.
yeah, instead of all that, you submit this document that just highlights your worst, most humiliating failures.
Just a totally wild strategy.
I mean, you list the times you were physically beaten down, the projects that ended in absolute chaos, the nights you spent awake, just completely exhausted and anxious.
Which is, that completely defies how we understand power and authority, both today and, honestly, in the ancient world, too.
It really does. But today, we are looking at an ancient leader who did exactly that.
And it is fascinating.
The sources guiding our journey today are the detailed study notes from the Holman and NAA study Bibles, and we're focusing specifically on the Apostle Paul's second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 6.
A really intense chapter.
It is. So our mission here is to sort of mine this text to understand what authentic, gritty leadership looks like in the real world.
Yeah, and we're going to explore the mechanics of human relationships, too.
Right, and uncover why setting incredibly strict, uncompromising boundaries is sometimes the absolute most loving thing you can possibly do.
To really capture the weight of this text, though, you kind of have to understand the environment first.
Paint the picture for us.
Well, first century Corinth was not, it wasn't some quiet, pious little village. It was this bustling, incredibly wealthy trade hub.
Okay.
Think of it as like a mashup of Wall Street and Las Vegas.
Oh, wow. Okay, so lots of money, lots of ego.
Exactly. Status, outward appearance, really eloquent speech. Those were the ultimate currencies. The people in Corinth, they respected winners, they respected power.
So it's a very status-obsessed culture.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And into that culture, Paul writes this letter that is just practically burning with desperation and urgency.
Yeah, and that urgency, it hits you right in the opening lines. I mean, he doesn't ease into the conversation at all.
Not even a little bit.
He immediately quotes the ancient prophet Isaiah, talking about the acceptable time and the day of salvation.
Right.
And the historical context here gives us this really fascinating takeaway about what that actually means, because it's not just some theological concept or a future date on a calendar, right?
No, it's not. Broadly speaking, the study notes frame this day as the entire era between Christ's first and second comings.
So we are currently living in that window.
Exactly. But on an individual, psychological level, the implications are massive.
How so?
Well, for you as a person, the day of salvation is the exact, precise moment you encounter the truth.
Oh, wow.
The moment you hear the good news, it is right now.
The infinite stakes of the present moment.
Yes. Paul is warning against that deeply human tendency to say, I will deal with this tomorrow, or I'll change my life when things calm down.
Right, we all do that.
He is arguing that there is no tomorrow promised. Delay is basically a form of rejection.
It's like the ultimate limited time offer, but your actual life is on the line.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And he pairs that urgency with a warning, right?
Yeah.
He says, do not receive this grace in vain.
Right.
Which makes me wonder, if someone is handed this ultimate gift, how do they accidentally render it useless? What does that mean?
So receiving grace in vain, according to the notes, it points to a life that remains entirely untransformed.
Okay, so nothing changes.
Right. It can mean outright apostasy, where someone, hears the truth and eventually just turns their back on it completely.
Does walks away.
Yeah. But more subtly, it means a failure to produce any real fruit or good works. The logic here is that true grace is a catalyst. If you claim to accept it, but your character doesn't change.
If your habits don't change.
Exactly. And there is no forward momentum in how you treat other people, then you haven't actually absorbed the gift.
You've merely acknowledged it intellectually.
Right, which renders it totally void.
Man, that's at such a heavy, serious stage. Because right after he establishes this life or death urgency, Paul leans into that bizarre resume we talked about at the beginning.
He really does.
He presents his leadership credentials to the Corinthians. He lists afflictions, hardships, beatings, imprisonments, riots, sleepless nights, hunger.
It is a completely startling list of qualifications for a leader trying to, maintain authority over a community.
I mean, let me push back on this strategy for a second.
Sure.
Keeping in mind that status-obsessed Corinthian culture you mentioned,
Yeah.
if you look at modern leadership, especially in our era of highly curated social media influencers,
Oh, yeah.
it is all about projecting invincibility. You show the polished moments, the optimized morning routines, the financial wins.
You never show the mess.
Right. You curate a perfect aesthetic to prove you have the authority to lead. So why on earth would Paul build an authority profile on his absolute lowest, most humiliating days? Why brag about being chased out of town by a mob?
It's because he is locked in this direct battle with false teachers who had infiltrated the Corinthian community.
Oh, interesting.
These false teachers were basically the first century equivalent of those polished influencers.
Okay, so they were the ones flexing on social media, so to speak.
Basically, yeah. They were boasting about their visionary experiences, their speaking fees, their flawless rhetoric.
They're wealthy patrons.
Right. And they were telling the Corinthians, follow us because we are strong and successful.
So they're playing the status game.
Exactly. And Paul realizes that if he tries to compete with them on their terms, he undermines his own message entirely. So he leans completely into paradox.
Yeah, he starts throwing out these wild contrasts like, we are dying and yet we live.
Right.
Or we are poor yet making many rich.
Right. And by highlighting his absolute physical fragility and pairing it with this immense, undeniable spiritual impact, he proves a crucial point about causality.
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. If Paul were wealthy, healthy, and universally loved, outsiders would look at the success of his movement and just assume it was due to his own human charisma.
Or his deep pockets.
Exactly. But because he is constantly battered, humiliated, and physically broken, yet his work is still transforming thousands of lives.
The only logical conclusion is that the power comes entirely from God.
Yes. Human frailty becomes this clear glass through which divine power just shines.
Wow. That completely flips the script on the legitimate leadership.
Right.
It's not about how strong you look on the outside. It's about what sustains you when the outside is just being ripped apart.
Exactly. And, he isn't just a punching bag here.
Right. I noticed this striking phrase where he talks about carrying weapons of righteousness for the right and left hand.
Oh, yeah, that's a great visual.
My mind immediately goes to, a gladiator or a Roman legionary.
Right.
Because in ancient combat, you hold the sword in your right hand for offense, and you hold the heavy shield in your left hand for defense.
The study notes actually point this out. It perfectly captures his meaning. A true leader isn't just enduring suffering passively.
They're fighting back.
They are fully equipped for an active war zone. So defensive righteousness is the shield in the left hand.
Meaning what, practically?
It's the integrity, the patience, and the moral fortitude required to withstand the beatings, the slander, the riots, without compromising your character.
Okay, and the right hand.
Offensive righteousness is the sword in the right hand.
Yeah.
It's the truth of God's word used to actively advance the mission, dismantle falsehoods, and push back against darkness.
Man, so he is completely vulnerable, physically exposed to the elements, but simultaneously armed to the teeth spiritually.
Exactly.
And if his leadership is based on this incredible level of suffering and sacrifice, it kind of forces us to look at how that impacts his relationships.
Right, because it has a huge impact.
I mean, he is bleeding for this community in Corinth. He is fighting riots for them. What does he expect from them in return?
Well, he expects genuine intimacy. After laying out all this suffering, Paul gets incredibly tender.
He shifts tone completely.
He really does. He tells them, our mouth has spoken freely to you, O Corinthians. Our heart is opened wide.
Yeah.
He is stripping away any remaining professional distance and just say, I have held absolutely nothing back from you. I have suffered for you, and my heart is completely exposed to you.
But they are not reciprocating. They're closed off.
They are deeply restricted in their own affections.
Why?
Well, the historical context shows us that they have allowed the influence of those status-obsessed false teachers to make them cynical.
Oh, they're embarrassed by him.
Exactly. They are embarrassed by Paul's suffering. So Paul makes this plea. He asks them to open their hearts to him, just like children opening up to a father.
He wants raw, trusting affection.
Right.
But this is where the text gives the reader a bit of whiplash.
Oh, for sure.
Because right after this beautiful, desperate plea for wide open hearts and vulnerability, he immediately drops the harshest, most rigid boundary in the entire letter.
Yeah, it's a huge pivot.
He commands them Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers.
It feels like a sudden shift from extreme openness to extreme closedness.
Let's unpack the metaphor here, because it traces back to an ancient agricultural law in Deuteronomy, right? Regarding the plowing of fields.
Right, Deuteronomy 22.9.
Yeah, so a farmer was forbidden from harnessing two different animals together under one yoke, like an ox and a donkey.
Because they're just too different.
Exactly. Their strides are different, their natural strength is different, their instincts are completely different.
Right.
So if you strap them together with a heavy wooden beam across their necks, they're just going to chafe, stumble, and hurt each other.
And the plow will just go in circles.
The field will be completely ruined. But here's the tension I'm struggling with, and maybe you can help me out here.
I'll try.
Isn't Paul completely contradicting himself? Literally one breath ago, he is begging them for wide-open hearts.
Right.
And now he is demanding strict isolation.
Is he telling them to form a closed-off, exclusionary bubble where they never speak to anyone outside their religious group?
See, that's a very common misreading of the text.
Okay.
Paul is absolutely not demanding total cultural isolation. We actually know from his other writings that he expects believers to engage with their neighbors, eat with them, interact with the broader world.
Right, he was a missionary. He had to talk to people.
Exactly. The key to resolving this tension is the specific mechanism of a yoke.
A yoke.
Right. A yoke doesn't just mean physical proximity or casual friendship. A yoke is a binding structural alliance where you are forced to move in the exact same direction as the person next to you.
Ah, so he is warning against a very specific tier of relationship.
Yes. He is warning against alliances where an unbeliever, specifically in this context, those false apostles who are actively corrupting the church, can forcefully dictate the trajectory of a believer's life. Give me a modern example of that.
Okay, think about this in a modern context. Imagine you are trying to co-found a tech startup.
Okay, I'm with you.
You want to build this community-driven charity app that transparently helps vulnerable people. But your co-founder secretly wants to run a predatory data mining scam that extracts as much money as possible from those same users.
Wow, okay, yeah. You can't just compromise on that. You can't say, well, let's just do a little bit of charity and a little bit of scamming to keep the peace.
Right. The core directions are fundamentally incompatible.
Yeah.
If you are legally, financially, and structurally yoked together in that business, one of you is going to drag the other off a cliff.
The work will just grind to a painful, destructive halt.
Exactly. And Paul uses a very heavy term here to drive this home. He asks what harmony there is between Christ and Belial.
Belial.
Yeah, it's an ancient Hebrew term for other wickedness, destruction, or Satan.
Wow, so he is not mincing words.
No, he is pointing out that these false teachers aren't just well-meaning folks with a slightly different leadership philosophy. Their fundamental source of influence is entirely opposed to the ways of Christ.
Light and darkness cannot pull the same plow.
Exactly.
Because if you strap them together, the darkness doesn't suddenly become illuminated. The partnership just collapses into chaos.
Exactly.
This reframes the entire concept of boundary setting. The boundary isn't about arrogance or thinking you are inherently better than the people outside your circle.
Right.
It is about protecting the trajectory of your life. True, expansive love actually requires firm boundaries.
Because you cannot have a deeply open, healthy relationship with a community if they are simultaneously yoked to predators who are trying to destroy them.
It is a protective measure, not a punitive one.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. If the danger of this unequal yoke is absolute destruction, what is so incredibly fragile or so infinitely valuable that Paul is fighting this hard to protect it?
Well, he's not just trying to protect their feelings.
Right.
He is protecting an actual identity. He tells them, "For we are the temple of the living God."
The temple.
And the linguistics in the study notes here are fascinating. He doesn't just use the general word for a temple.
There are different words for it.
Yeah, he uses the Greek word naos.
Naos.
Right. In the ancient world, there was a broad term for the entire temple complex, which included the outer courtyards, the gathering spaces, the exterior walls.
The whole campus.
Exactly. But naos refers specifically to the inner sanctuary, the Holy of Holies.
The most restricted part.
Yes. This was the absolute, most sacred, restricted space where the very presence of God was believed to dwell on earth.
Let's just pause and consider the sensory reality of that.
Yeah.
Because when we think of a sacred space today, we usually picture, I don't know, a beautiful, quiet building with stained glass and high ceilings, a place we visit once a week to find some peace and quiet.
Right. Very serene.
But an ancient temple was visceral. It was a place of sacrifice, of incense, of this terrifying holiness where only the high priest could enter.
It was intense.
And Paul completely flips the architecture of the cosmos here. He is saying a building of stone is no longer the sacred space. The people are the sacred space.
The corporate body of the believers, living and breathing together, is the naos.
Which is, that is a radical paradigm shift in Jewish theology.
Oh, absolutely. God doesn't dwell in a geographic location anymore. He dwells intimately within the messy human reality of his people.
And that perfectly explains why the boundaries we just discussed have to be so uncompromising.
Right.
You do not invite chaos into the Holy of Holies. You don't bring predatory scams into the inner sanctuary.
Never.
The strict boundary he is asking for isn't a cage to keep them trapped. It is a vital security system for a priceless treasure.
And to prove just how monumental this shift is, Paul does something brilliant at the very end of the chapter.
What does he do?
The study notes show he builds this theological mashup. He takes distinct promises from 4 different Old Testament texts, Leviticus, Jeremiah, Isaiah, and 2 Samuel, and he weaves them all into a single unified declaration.
But wait, why is a trained Jewish scholar doing that? Why combine them like that?
Because he is showing that all the fragmented hopes of the ancient world have suddenly collided in the present moment.
Oh, I see.
He takes these ancient covenant promises where God said, I will dwell among them and walk among them, and I will be their God. And he shows that these aren't just poetic hopes for a distant future anymore.
Because of what Christ has done, they are a living reality right now.
Exactly.
And there's one specific detail in that matchup that is absolutely breathtaking. Paul adapts a promise from 2 Samuel, right?
Yes.
Originally, that promise was given specifically to King David regarding his royal male lineage. The promise was that God would be a father to David's son.
Yes, very specific.
But Paul takes that narrow, historically specific promise and he just changes the wording. He expands it to say, I will be a father to you, and you shall be sons and daughters to me.
The inclusion of the word daughters just blows the doors completely off the ancient framework.
It really does.
Under the Old Covenant, access to the divine was heavily restricted, by bloodline, by gender, by strict adherence to the law.
Right.
But Paul is introducing the reality of the new covenant God's updated relationship with humanity, based entirely on grace rather than a genetic royal lineage.
Yeah.
By adding daughters, he takes a promise that belonged only to Israel's kings and applies it to all of God's people, men, women, Jews, Gentiles, slaves, and free citizens.
Anyone who answers the call is now brought into this intimate royal family dynamic.
It is an incredible narrative arc. He starts the chapter with the urgency of a battlefield, the riots, the beatings, the armor, the weapons in the right and left hands.
Yeah.
He demands these intense, unyielding boundaries against false influences. But he ends the chapter in a family room.
A family room. I love that.
The entire purpose of that gritty, paradoxical leadership and all those difficult boundaries is to create a secure, sacred space where people can experience the deep, safe love of a father.
And this brings the entire text full circle. Because to actually experience that family dynamic, to be part of that living temple,
you have to respond to the urgency we discussed in verses 1 and 2.
Right. You have to recognize the acceptable time. You have to step out of the unequal yokes that are dragging you down, and you have to do it today.
Today, exactly.
So let's pull all of these threads together for you. We started by looking at the terrifying urgency of the present moment. The reality that the day of salvation is the exact second you encounter the truth, and delaying that choice is a dangerous game.
Right. And we looked at a totally inverted model of leadership.
Yeah, one that builds authority through vulnerability, transparency, and a reliance on divine power rather than curating a fake resume of human perfection.
Then we explored the complex mechanics of relationships, discovering that having a wide-open heart is only sustainable if you maintain firm boundaries.
Because you cannot pull the plow of your life effectively if you are structurally bound to influences that are fundamentally opposed to your core values.
Right. And finally, we uncovered the massive stakes behind those boundaries.
You collectively are the naos. You are the living inner sanctuary where the divine presence dwells, adopted as royal sons and daughters.
This isn't just an ancient letter. It is a masterclass in how to build a life and a community that is fiercely protected, deeply loving, and anchored in truth.
It leaves you with a profound mandate to evaluate your own alliances.
It really does.
And it leaves you with something very practical and, honestly, maybe a little uncomfortable to chew on.
Uh-oh.
We talked about how the day of salvation is that precise moment you realize a truth about your life and you know you need to act on it without delay.
Right.
If that is true, it forces a hard question. How many crucial, life-changing moments are you letting slip by right now simply because you are too comfortably yoked to incompatible influences? Are there alliances, habits, business partnerships, or relationships in your life that are quietly dragging you off course, keeping you from stepping fully into the sacred purpose you were designed for? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. May God bless each and every one of you.